So he considered himself to be someone who worships the divine feminine. But then when I was like, okay, so what do you mean by that? He was like, oh, worship means I want to go down on you. Not just be multiple women. And somehow devotion ends up to be something self-serving. And somehow this idea of the divine feminine, again, like turns her into an object.
Welcome to Healing After Harm, a place for nuanced conversations about pathways forward for individuals and communities after experiencing harm in a learning or healing environment. We'll be covering topics like accountability, repair, how to rebuild your life, responding to allegations, finding your voice, and more. Now, these conversations go to real places, covering topics like sexual abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, amongst others. Please take care of yourself, taking pauses or stopping as needed. I'm your host, Hina Patel. Let's dive in. Welcome, Asha Mahari, to this podcast. Asha is an energy facilitator who is dedicated to dismantling the spiritualization of patriarchy within wellness spaces. I became aware of Asha and her work due to social media. I actually became familiar with her through her writings, as she has been sharing of her experience of harm and really naming what happened and making connections between what happened, what she's experienced in the micro to what is happening at the macro level within healing spaces. And I knew that I had to bring her into conversation because she has such a potent way with words. Asha, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Asha, I'd love to begin with a little bit of your story of what you experienced that prompted you to start writing so beautifully about the conditions that allow for harm to happen within healing environments.
Yeah. So it really started from a space of complete disillusionment with the spiritual community, which I trace back to I had a Kundalini awakening back in 2023. And so it opened my world so much. But with it, I started getting really interested in like the divine feminine, things like twin flames, things like soulmates, soul connections, past life connections, like all of that, like really exciting stuff. And then at the same time, I was also deeply invested in my healing journey. So when that really came like crashing down, was when last year when I met this man who was an energy healer, a workshop facilitator. He did a lot of work around like relationships and uh, just like communication, like focused like type workshops and stuff like that. And he was able to use the language that he had garnered from these spaces in order to manipulate me, and to paint this sort of rosy picture that that's not actually what was happening. And so that exchange was thankfully really short.
So I'm going to interrupt just to clarify here. So this was someone you went to as a practitioner, and it was someone who's doing work around relationships and communication, and you were in his sphere, and at some point something started developing and you guys got romantically involved.
Correct. Yeah. There wasn't any like one-on-one sort of work happening, at least not at the beginning. It was more like a community focused like workshops, that kind of thing. And then he slid into my DMs like like I don't know, 4 months. Well, he first slid into my DMs like it was like weeks after he broke up with somebody who everybody knew that he had been in a relationship with. Which like the first time I ignored it, and then the second time I was like, this kind of feels like a red flag. It was a red flag.
Hindsight is 2020.
But it was like whatever. He was coming off with like these intentions to be platonic, and he said like, like I'm interested in that, or I'm interested in seeing where things go. And I was like, okay, and that became the source of like one of the, well, actually a couple of pieces that I've written on now, which is the kind of covert weaponization of this term platonic. So trying to think like when things actually started to escalate. I mean, they escalated pretty quickly, and that was because I was in this sort of it was kind of like a fantasy realm, but also like a healing trap of considering like, okay, is this my person that I've been calling in? Is this my soulmate? Is this my or even my twin partner? Like things are kind of edgy at the beginning, but is that because there's it's triggering something in me that I need to heal and work out? And
roll my eyes because I get it. There's so much in the spiritual community that at some point is like, it's supposed to be hard, right? It's supposed to like be activating for it to be the right thing for you. When now as like a somatic practitioner and someone who's moved through a lot of the like super quick attachment stuff, and of course there's still more layers to that, right? And someone who grew up with a system that was very used to chaos, like that, it's easy to believe that stuff was like, chaos is love. This is supposed to be what it's supposed to be like. But then as you do the healing, you're like, no, calm is really beautiful, and consistency is maybe actually more of what love is. It's like stability, that you can be in relationship and it'll still bring up your stuff, but in a very different way of like not being like this roller coaster all the time.
Yes, exactly. And thank you for bringing that up and like, and pointing out that mirror, because like in very many ways, I feel like we've, or at least in the spiritual community, we've spiritualized unhealthy attachments, like clear attachment patterns, like the idea that chaos is love, and then wrap them up in a flowery language, like, oh, like that's just a twin flame journey, and then it's even worse when your partner is reinforcing that. So, the piece that I just wrote was about how when you're dedicated to your healing path, it can keep you in these kinds of relationships, these kinds of like unhealthy, toxic relationships even longer than the lesson is, because there is a lesson involved. I'm still a very spiritual person. Like that's not the part that I got disillusioned from. But the lesson is sometimes to get the hell out of Dodge. Choose yourself. Yeah. So that's ultimately where I ended up. But I asked Spirit, I was like, just make it clear, please. Can you please just make it clear? I'm so confused. And Spirit made it clear. I wish Spirit had made it clear sooner, but I do think that it gave me the raw materials that I needed in order to transmute that into something that was going to help other people, especially other women.
I'd love for you to tell me more about what prompted you to be sharing this publicly and what you experienced.
Yeah, so it really started with like the first time I shared my story in a very vulnerable way. I was really just trying to gather more information. This man, he was also he identified as polyamorous. He did not say that he was interested in having a polyamorous relationship with me. I mean, he knew that that this was something that I was not in support of and wanting for myself.
You guys got romantically involved And you made it really clear that you were looking for a monogamous relationship.
I made that super, super clear. And I also made it clear that I also, I don't talk to people. I don't talk to multiple people at a time. I talk to people exclusively, and I expect that the person I'm talking to also only be talking to me until we decide that that's something that we're no longer doing.
And he agreed to this.
And he agreed to this.
Just making it really clear. Okay.
And he agreed to this. And so, but he had been coming out of a polyamorous relationship that, well, I mean, he was in that one for about a year and a half. But like prior to that, like this had been like the most recent part of his dating history. And he was particularly interested in setting up a hierarchical polyamorous dynamic. Again, if that was going to be the case, he said that with you, it's going to be monogamous, but if we were to be poly, like I would want to be in a hierarchical dynamic so that I would have one woman that would be my main person. And then in his language, he said I would have other women around to get my needs met. That's what he said.
His words. Okay.
And it became very clear that by needs, he was referring to sexual needs. And as I was dissecting the issue with this, I was like, okay, so these women would be objects to you in a sense. Like you want to set up a power dynamic in which you have one woman that you're accountable to, and then other women are just
Right.
are just there to meet those sexual needs. So needs in quotations. So I was completely against this. What ended up ultimately breaking the camel's back. I mean, this connection between us was full of other forms of like manipulation and things like he would drop polyamory or polygamy into every single conversation that we had. Like totally unprompted.
There's coercion happening, right?
Yes.
You had been really clear that you want to be monogamous. You guys set a container of monogamy, but
Yes.
there's this coercion that's happening to go poly is like what we should actually orient to.
Yes.
And I think something that you and I maybe talked about offline was also putting it under the guise of like spirituality, and this is a better way to do things.
100%. So he considered himself to be someone who worships the divine feminine. And, but then when I was like, okay, so what do you mean by that? He was like, oh, by worship, I mean, I want to worship you. I mean, I want to go down on you. I'm like, because like me as someone, who like, I don't use the term.
And not just you. Multiple women.
Not just me, multiple women.
That's how he wants to show his devotion, is that, and this is the way, and this is why it's justified, because it's devotion to the divine feminine.
Exactly. And somehow devotion ends up to be something self-serving. And somehow this idea of the divine feminine is something that's very, again, like turns her into an object. So that was like another form of this like kind of manipulation that went on. And when I called him out on that, like specifically, I was like, this is neither my idea of reverence nor of what that should look like. He said, oh, well, like, what about you is so hurt that you don't want to be taken care of? Where's that in you that you don't want a man that pours into you? And I was like, holy crap. Imagine though that I still gave him the benefit of the doubt after that, because I was just so really just in shock that this man that was facilitating this workshops, that version of the man who was so gentle and so I don't know, just seemed so genuine and so kind and so yeah, and and just had this like sort of like tender presence. Now it was like somebody else had come in and was now just like trying to weaponize this therapy speak and spirituality speak in order to do and get what it was that he wanted.
And this was also someone who teaches about communication in relational dynamics.
Yeah.
Gonna
Just
name that. Just gonna name that piece as well. You then do this post because you're getting confused about what's going on.
yeah.
So you do this
So
post about polyamory and women and what happens.
yeah, so this was already about a couple of weeks after we had broken up.
Okay.
And the reason why we had broken up is because I found out that I was already in a polyamorous dynamic with him. He had two other partners, and but they weren't giving him that hierarchy that he wanted. So he had two other partners, but they were like, and they had agreed to be poly, and but they were going to date other people, other men, whatever, but everything was just going to be equal, and they weren't going to call it anything like special, anything that was going to get him that level of, um, I don't know, structure, security, or probably validation that he was looking for.
So you thought you were in a monogamous relationship.
I thought, yes,
Turns out you were in a polyamorous dynamic
yes,
that was not with your consent.
correct.
And also, where were these other women like coming from?
My community.
So
They were
also other former or current workshop participants.
Yes. Yes. One of these other women, he had met her around the same time that he met me, actually, and under similar circumstances. Like, there was something that that I'm pretty sure that he was hosting. And then she was from out of town. She was new to the community, and like she showed up to the space, and then yeah, he tends to find himself around these kinds of women that don't really know people, but that are spiritually oriented and and vulnerable.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is like it's identifying people who are new, so don't have the community ties, don't have the history of what's
Mhm.
happened, right? So
Mhm.
don't necessarily know his relationship history,
Mhm.
right? People who are coming to his workshops because obviously they're like, this man has something to offer. They get
Mhm.
to experience him as someone who's very tender and present and is providing valuable information or experiences,
Mhm.
right? Supportive experiences for people on their healing journey, right? If you went to many of his workshops before you even started dating, I'm assuming that there was something that it was additive to your life, right? His work in the world was additive to your life. And now several of you simultaneously are romantically engaged with him. Some of them know that it's a polydynamic. You don't, but you all share these similar traits.
Yes, correct. And so these women, my understanding from what he ended up telling me is that they knew about me. They didn't know my name or who I was, but they knew about me because that was something, um, I don't know what, convenient, I guess, in terms of the dynamic that he had set up with them. But I definitely didn't know about them because that wasn't convenient for him in the dynamic that he had set up with me.
And you guys are all at times sharing space. Like you've met these women.
He
But
introduced me to to the woman that he ended up and I okay, so and I believe that he introduced me to her because his ultimate fantasy and his ultimate goal was to have us in a polydynamic where I was the hierarchy person.
primary, you
I
were
was
the
the primary
primary.
person, yeah. And that she would remain like secondary, tertiary. I don't know how the rest of those terms
But
go.
you guys would be metamorphs.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, but and I did really like her. It was really cool. We really connected.
But
Um,
you didn't know that there was this dynamic going on, that you
no,
actually were metamorphs.
yes, I did not know that. No. And so what ended up happening was, I decided that I was feeling safe enough in our connection that I said that, okay, like let's go ahead and do do the thing where we call each other boyfriend and girlfriend. We're now like sacred union partners. That was a word that was that was being thrown around in this dynamic that had nothing to do with it. But that is ultimately what I wanted, and he said that that's what he wanted. So and so at that point, that's when he broke up with this woman, and I guess the other woman who I never met. And this woman was absolutely furious because she was like, okay, so literally I was just a stepping stone for you to get to this other dynamic of relationship that it was that you wanted. Right? And so and so when he told me about that, like that having happened, I was like, I was in shock because first of all, I didn't know that he was talking to other people, right? We said that at the beginning. I was absolutely in shock. And then two, I was like, why would she be so upset if it wasn't something like serious? And so I ended up talking to this woman, and she explained like everything that I said earlier, that they were in a polydynamic. Everything was equal. He wanted something more hierarchical, and that's not something that she was willing to give him. So it became clear to me that he had told both of us what he needed to tell us in order to get what it was that he wanted. And yeah.
When you start, now you decide, you break up,
Mhm.
and now you decide to start talking about your experiences.
Yes. It started from a place of like just pure curiosity. I wanted to know what what both the polyamorous community and people who are monogamous, what they felt about this type of language around polyamory being a way to get your needs met. Because from my experience, the shadow of that type of language is the idea that people are tools, and that people are objects,
And at
and
least your experience of it,
yes,
right,
yes,
is very much what was articulated to you,
yes,
right? Because you're a monogamous person, but this person who is poly that you're engaging with and wants you to become poly, the way that it was articulated to you was that, yes, I need to get my sexual needs met, and they're not being fully met within our container. So there is this place of feeling the objectification, and
hmm
then learning that all these women that he's engaging with outside of you, and even in his history, are all coming from his workshop participants.
yes, exactly. Exactly. So, and the way that I found out like just exactly that scope is when I made the post that posed this question about whether or not this language is inherently objectifying. And I said some things in that post that I honestly, I didn't have to say much. One of the people who reached out to me said, I got 3 sentences in and I knew exactly who you were talking about.
Well, it's
So
now, so there's this place that there's people in the community that actually know,
yeah, yeah.
but
And
you didn't know this about him because you were newer.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that fact was something that made me vulnerable, and that's something that he was able to leverage. So after making this post, I had a lot of people DM me and say like, look, like some people ignored the question completely. They just reached out to say that, look, I know who you're talking about. I've witnessed this behavior from him before, or I know someone who's been subject to this kind of behavior before. Just this sort of commodification of them, this disposability of them, the use of platonic touch as a means of access, and just a lot of women just walking away not feeling good about what happened after that, but not being able to name it. And so with that, one of those women actually said like, do you want to like do something about this? And it was just like in a brainstorming type of sense. But she was like, you know, maybe we gather because I know like a lot of these women personally that have had these same experiences with this specific individual. So maybe we gather them and like host some kind of intervention or something with this man. And almost right away, I was like, you know what, that doesn't feel good in my body. But what I would like to do is something that focuses on the women. If not these women specifically, just like the community of like helping them to be able to identify all of the red flags like sooner and empowering them on, you know, what to do should these sorts of sort of just like uncomfortable dynamics even come up.
Yeah, there's something really beautiful that I noticed across your posts, and several of them, um, that you speak to, whether directly or indirectly, this fawning pattern and this tolerance that women have, right? Or like an overriding of the intuition, or like, oh, that doesn't feel quite right, but it's okay. Like, and how like used to we've gotten to tolerating the little, like, you can't, for those of you listening to the audio and can't see the video, I'm sort of just bringing my shoulders up a little bit. Like, it's not a full, like, tightening my body, but just a little contraction, right? And that we're so used to moving through the world slightly contracted, right?
Hmm.
And just going, it's okay. This is just what the world is.
Hmm.
And what you're speaking to is how the little transgressions then become bigger.
Yes. Yes. I think that it's on one hand it's the woman sort of internalizing all these sort of I've called them micro assaults.
Mm.
Either well, I think that this is how it happens, right? I think we become used to normalizing it like on a world scale. And then that's how that pattern shows up then again in our relationships. It's just like kind of like these, again, like these normalizations of things that just don't feel good in our bodies. But it just feels like maybe this is just an inherent part of being a woman. Um, and then also I think that there's this sense of like there's something that I get out of this that I couldn't otherwise. And I mean, and ultimately, I believe that that thing is a sense of safety.
You were doing this, you decided to do a gathering where you're like, no, it's not about trying to bring stuff up to the person who has been doing this, but you wanted to talk to the women, and you want to talk to the women specifically to bring awareness around the red flags and where are we tolerating where we maybe shouldn't be, because it then those micro assaults grow, snowball into something that's bigger. So what makes me curious is you had this experience with this teacher, right? He was your facilitator and your teacher, and you became romantically involved, realized that you were being lied to, realized there was a larger pattern. What made, and you did that first post because you just wanted more information because you were confused. You're like, what is this? This doesn't feel right. So I love that you were listening to something that didn't feel right in your body, and you're like, I need more information. So I'm going to reach out for support. Right. And that leads to the floodgates opening, finding out about a larger pattern that's bigger than what you had known at that
Mhm.
time, and doing something for the women in the community. And now it seems like it's turned into these larger writings that you're speaking to because you recognize that it wasn't just something that's happening in this one community with this one teacher, but is happening across wellness spaces. It's freaking beautiful and wonderful that you're using your voice in this way. And as I said at the beginning, I came across your work because you have such a beautiful way with words. And it can be hard for someone to find their voice and to speak up. And I'm curious, in your journey, when were there moments of like being unsure of if you should speak or not? And how did you find your clarity to use your writing and your voice to speak up about these kinds of patterns and behaviors?
100%. I still have moments where I'm like, should I actually share this or not? I feel just like in my gut, like my gut starts turning and it's just, and it can be a battle. But, yeah, even like the post that I was describing where I asked the polyamory question, I recognize that polyamory is a very, very sensitive and very polarizing subject, especially like right now, because it's a very like popular topic, and it's a very popular dynamic for people to have relationships in, particularly within spiritual community, at least for right now. And so I didn't know what that potential backlash was going to be like. I didn't know, especially still being new to the community that I was in, I didn't know what that was going to do for my ability to form relationships in the community moving forward. But I mean, like the way that I have been able to just sort of mitigate that is to um just really notice where I'm coming from. Because if I'm coming from a place of like trying to attack people, then like that's where the attack like that gets mirrored, you know? And that's not to say that I water down my voice, because I don't. But I've learned that it needs to be about learning, like, if there is that desire to come off in a more confrontational sort of way, then like taking a step back and then looking internally and seeing why that is. Because what I found is that that means that there's something within that still needs to be integrated.
Mm.
And so I will say that the post I made was not the first time that I spoke out about polyamory. That's the first time I spoke out about polyamory directly to the members of my community.
Mm. Uh-huh.
Oh, I made a YouTube video. I was just kind of like shouting into the void at that point, because I had no followers. I had never made a YouTube video before either. Um, um, but yeah, where I was coming from in that video was of a place that was more less, well, okay, let's say just less integrated, more reactive. And yeah, and when I looked back on that video, like maybe like 6 months later, I was like, you know what? I do think that there's something here that is important to speak about. Um, but I want it to land in people's hearts, so it needs to come from mine. And
Mm.
yeah, and
So I'm going to just repeat that. You want it to land in people's hearts, so it needs to come from yours. And you
yes.
notice that the one first place that you started using your voice was coming from a reactive place, not coming from a heart-centered place. And for me, what I'm hearing in that, in being heart-centered, it's being open and curious, right? It's not going, I know, and I'm going to like point fingers and be holier than thou, but rather coming from a place of openness and curiosity.
100%. It's that, and I found that there's one other ingredient that really works for me, which is coming from a place of personal experience.
Mm.
So leading with that vulnerability. And I really like, I haven't written on anything that I haven't experienced myself personally, or that I haven't been either complicit in, or the perpetrator of in some way. Like I don't write about any experience that I don't have that level of personal connection to.
Well,
And
I want to highlight something you just said. Yes, one is it comes from your personal experience, right? So you're not judging from the external.
mhm,
You're speaking from within,
mhm,
right? Of an experience. But also what you shared is that you're not simply focusing on the things that you experienced where you were the one who experienced the harm or the victim.
mhm,
You're also speaking to times and places where you were complicit, or you might have been the perpetrator of harm.
yes,
Right.
yes.
And so I think it's so important. I want to emphasize that, because you're not speaking from a victim identity.
Oh, yeah.
right? Of like, look at what happened to me and needing a witness from like the ethers of like
Mm-hmm.
the internet
Mm-hmm.
to like hold a mirror up or witness your experience. You're speaking from a digested place, and you're also leading with your humanity and not portraying yourself as I'm perfect or I have it all figured out. It's like, no, I have hurt people as well. I
Mm-hmm.
have been complicit as well. And this is how I'm grappling with that.
Yes, exactly. And so that's why when I talk about patriarchy as a system, like I'm not talking about something external to me that I feel like is that I'm a victim of. I don't feel like any woman is a victim of, or at least not solely, right? Or and the same goes for men. Like when I talk about systems, I'm talking about belief systems. They are connected. They are one and the same. So when I talk about systemic patriarchy, I'm also talking about the internalized patriarchy. And and I mean, the belief systems, they matter to me so much because well, first of all, like my background is in psychology. I do a lot of IFS parts work. Um, that kind of analytical space of understanding the ego. Um, but as a spiritual person, I also fully believe that our beliefs create our reality. And so if we want to take down the patriarchy, we need to dismantle the inner patriarchy. Yeah. And so when I write, I'm writing about the way that I've dismantled the inner patriarchy within myself.
Mhm. Beautiful. Beautiful. Asha, it's been such a pleasure to have you here to hear about what you've lived through, how you have integrated it, digested it, and how you've now turned it into um, part of your soul's work, is what it feels like to me. To be able to speak to these dynamics, hold up a mirror to these belief systems, hold up a mirror for others, but also holding a mirror to yourself before you even hold a mirror to others. Um, to get people to be reflective and curious and see what touches them, see what they may be like, that's not true. It's really powerful. Uh, is there anything that you would like to share before we close?
Yeah. And I'm just going to be transparent. I did prepare this one because this came through a little bit earlier today, and I was like, "Ooh, this needs to be said," and and this needs to be said in a way that's very exact. Okay, patriarchy is the institutionalized rape of the divine feminine, and it shows up even in spiritual spaces with the grooming and actual rape of actual women.
Ooh, thank you for such a clear articulation of that. For those of you who want to connect with Asha, I'm going to put her links in the show notes so you can connect with her online, read some more of her writings. She has a way with words. So I do hope that you engage with her. If there's anything in this podcast that resonated with you, or if you're like, what are you all smoking? I don't agree with that. I want to hear about it because you all don't need to agree with me or Asha, right? Like, actually, I love hearing what resonates and what doesn't because it helps me see other perspectives. So feel free to get in touch. And if you liked this episode and this podcast, please like, comment, subscribe so it can reach more people, and share it with a friend that it could resonate with as well. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next time.